Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the next steps for BIM. I'm Rebecca Kemp, editor of Future Constructor and Architect magazine. Today I'll be joined by Adam Sheehan and Jamie Mills from Xylem Global Services. If you're following Xylem's webinar activity, welcome back, and if you're new to the brand, here's a nugget of information on the company. Xylem is an industry leader in water solutions driven by smart technology and digitisation. They support projects from planning and construction through to operation. As a BIM advocate, Xylem is leading the way by delivering digital solutions to its customers and by continuously innovating its portfolio and services. So moving on to our speakers, first up is Adam Sheehan, System Engineering Tools Application Specialist at Xylem Water Solutions AB. Adam is responsible for supporting BIM within Xylem brands for brands such as Flight, Wedeco, and Sanitaire to ensure that the manufactured products and services within these parts of the company will support customer needs. He's worked on programs for use with VR and AR, as well as 3D printing, to see how these new technologies can be better visualize complex challenges. Moving on to our second speaker, Jamie Mills. He's the newly appointed Global BIM Manager at Xylem. Jamie's background is application engineering, after which he moved into digital engineering and construction. From 2016 to 2019, he chaired the BIM for Water Standard Libraries Group and developed standard procedures for creating water industry data templates. He now chairs the overall BIM for Water group, which has 6 subgroups driving digital transformation across the water sector. Jamie's role at Xylem helps to ensure that all product manufacturers owned by Xylem and its colleagues are equipped with the knowledge and ability to deliver product data to customers. So there's a little bit of background information around speakers. Before I hand you over, I'll just add there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation to address any questions that are asked throughout the webinar. There's a sidebar at the right of desktops where you can type in any questions you may have. For mobile users, it is slightly different. So swipe left to ask questions and then swipe right to return to the presentation. All messages are private, so please do feel free to ask anything you like. Also, there'll be a series of multiple choice polls we'd like you to get involved with. So they'll pop up on the right again on the sidebar, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on these. Also, once the presentation has ended, you'll be taken to Xylem's BIM page, so you can read up more about their services and offerings. So that's enough from me. Adam, if you'd like to join me on video and audio. Hello, I'll switch off, Adam. You're now in full.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. As Rebecca said, my name is Adam Sheehan, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to introduce what Xylem has been doing with regards to BIM. And I'm going to start with kind of some of the challenges that Xylem works with, which you can see in the left-hand side of this slide, where we're discussing the main problems that the world is facing when it comes to such things as water scarcity, extreme weather events, and also aging infrastructure. So with that, Xylem has some solutions and some products, as you can see on the screen, with intelligent equipment, which can give you more information and more data and local control. And from there, we can offer smart network and services, which gives you central collection and central control, and you can be proactive. And from there, you can get some advanced data analytics, because although having all this information is great, actually knowing what to do with it is kind of the key to all of this. So being able to actually make it meaningful, to be able to transform it. And overall, obviously, we're trying to ensure that it has good accessibility, good affordability, and has resilience. So here you can see one of the things that we talk about at Xylem is the circle of water. So you can see from your raw water intake, you have water that goes to maybe some kind of water purification plant. And then from there, goes to its users. It could be a city, it could be an industrial client. And then from there, it gets pumped over maybe to a treatment plant or some kind of reclamation facility. And then from there, it goes back into where the water came from. One of the challenges is, where is BIM in all of this? And the answer to that is, BIM is everywhere in this circle. So that is one of the the big things already is that BIM exists everywhere. And then where is Xylem everywhere in this circle? We're also everywhere in this circle of water. One of the things that I was a part of was a group that put together information, talking to customers, talking to contractors, talking to consultants, to get information on where we are when it comes to BIM. And with that, we put together a web page to be able to share the information that we have gotten, we have received. You can see the link in here, which will be also shown at the end of the presentation. One of the interesting results, also not probably too surprising, is that 91% of the planners that we asked design with BIM in the construction business today or soon. So that's already a very high, I would say, adoption rate for something such as BIM. But one of the challenges with BIM is it means different things to different people. Obviously, we have the life cycle of a product and a project, and what BIM means in those different stages. Then we also have the different stakeholders. BIM means something different to someone, to an end user or the owner of a facility, than to the architect or to the manufacturer of a product going into that. There's also the different challenges that you have. Being able to capture water and energy footprint being one of them. Being able to have labor effectiveness, OpEx and CapEx control. All of these different items that can be brought together into BIM. So we have kind of the main kind of different, I would say, functions or things that BIM can do. Optimization obviously being one of them. Simplification, being able to have one environment for the life of a project. And transparency. So as the manufacturer, for example, can give you the data, and that data can then go through all the way from a project to the end user and to the maintenance guys that need to take care of it. One of the interesting things from the business case that we put together, that we worked on, obviously one of the most important recommendations that we had was for a person at Xylem that be responsible for BIM. And as you will see when we talk to Jamie Mills, we have that position, and Jamie has filled that role. So that was probably one of the most important things that we had, was that we need to have someone that is responsible for BIM for Xylem. And that is something that we have done. And then one of the interesting things that we have found is that tomorrow, obviously 91% today want or will or shortly start working with BIM. And the answer for tomorrow is at 100%. Obviously, everyone wants to work with BIM or will work with BIM or will be required to work with BIM. Some of the interesting things that we have found is that places such as Italy has heightened requirements when it comes to BIM and when BIM shall be used. So you can see here that more and more civil tenders will be required based upon a certain investment volume, with in 2020 over 50 million euros, and then going down to 15 million euros in 2021, and over 1 million euros in 2025, and then less than 1 million euros after 2025. So this is something where even in a country such as Italy, where they are quickly trying to adapt BIM to try to capture some of these benefits that BIM can provide. You can also see from the chart there how much downloads of digital 3D models, 2D drawings has increased over time with BIM. So you can see starting in 2014 and 2016 and 2018 how fast the BIM growth has grown. And you can also see on the website also where BIM is being implemented. Obviously, in a lot of places like the UK, obviously, is a strong history with BIM, the Nordics, Singapore, but it's in more places as well, such as Brazil, Chile, and then in different areas of the United States as well. So that's what I have. Next off, we'll get you over to Jamie, but yeah.
Thanks, Adam. I think we've actually had a few questions come through, so if you're okay to answer a few of them. The first one we've had through is, Adam, what's the most common question you receive regarding BIM?
I think one of the most common questions that I get regarding BIM is that and this is more of a situation because I work with the rest of the world and not just the UK, is Revit BIM? And obviously Revit is very popular and Autodesk has done a lot to do that as well. But of course, Revit is not the entirety of BIM. So that's one of the most common questions is, is this the entirety of BIM? And obviously, there's so much more of that when it comes to data and things of that nature. So that's one of the most common questions I get, especially from the US and different areas around the world, is this the entirety of BIM? And obviously, there's so much more to it than that.
Fantastic. We've got a couple more, so keep answering these. If anyone has any more questions, it's not too late to ask Adam any questions. So use the bar on the right to type in anything you want to ask Adam. So got a second question. If there was one single dominant benefit of using BIM, what would you say it is?
For me, I think the amazing thing about BIM is having all of the data available. When you have the data available for a system, be it a treatment plant, a city's infrastructure, there's so much that you can do with that. And obviously, one of the great challenges with working with aging infrastructure especially is that the data isn't digitized. Maybe it's in 40 or 50 or 60 or 100-year-old drawings. And once you have the data, there's so much kind of different things that you can do to be proactive if it comes to managing for what happens during a 100-year rain event, what happens during a 500-year rain event. Where are we losing water, for example? Different things, types like that. So having the biggest thing to me is having the data, and then once you have that data, what you can do with it. There's basically the sky is the limit when it comes to what you can do with it once you have everything.
Excellent, thank you. We've just had one come through from Simon. So how do you cope with the multitude of coding structures?
That is probably the biggest challenge from a manufacturer's point of view, because obviously we need to be able to support the customers and we need to be easy to work with the customers. So we don't have necessarily a good answer to that. One of the things that we're trying to be able to do is to be able to use some of and I think Jamie can answer a little bit more, some of the kind of the more universal frameworks when it comes to IFC or different things like that, or ISO standards, to be able to try to give data in the way that it can be used by the most amount of people, and then trying to help the people that use their own systems as much as possible, having a conversation with them, what do you need, so that we can be able to support them as well. Obviously, we don't want to support just 80% of the market or 90% of the market. We want to be able to help anyone as much as possible.
Excellent, thank you. And I think we've got time for one more before we move on to Jamie. So have you noticed a rise in projects using BIM following the pandemic?
Definitely. And then this is coming more from places that you wouldn't necessarily think of firsthand. Especially like places like the United States, where there's been a lot more requests for supporting of 3D models, Eastern Europe, Russia, and things of that nature. So there's definitely been a very large increase. And so it's definitely been one of the very noticeable things that we have seen is the increase in traffic, I would say, increased demand for information.
Fantastic, thank you, Adam. I ask you to kindly hop off, and like I mentioned, there is an opportunity if you still want to ask Adam some questions. It's not too late. There's another Q&A session right at the end after Jamie's presentation, so please ask anything you like. So Jamie, if I can ask you to hop on now, and we'll move on to your presentation. Perfect, thanks Jamie. I'll leave it with you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I heard some terms there, particularly around technology, and I thought before we jump into that conversation, I thought it might boil things down and just set a bit of background and context to what we're talking about. So an information model, which we can build up through the project delivery, so the design and the build into the operation, is going to consist of different systems of maybe static or dynamic components. And if we're talking about a built asset and not a satellite or a spacecraft, it's probably going to be connected to the natural environment. And they're going to be interconnecting forces or things that connect systems together. And of course, within the systems, there's going to be products. And when we're talking about data exchange, it's the information, the properties that describe the individual products that are important. And to deliver BIM, we're really talking about connecting those properties and those data in a hierarchy and a structure so we can make sense of it. And you can see here in the schematic that I'll present, I'm talking about inputs. That could be communication inputs to the information model or the built asset, and outputs. And each one of the systems is going to have a function which feeds a purpose or a process. We just take that a little bit further. I've put in the human or life layer, and I say humans or life because sometimes we build built assets to do other things than, feed human beings in our needs. But I've also brought in waste and the control systems layer. So the information model of the built asset is going to have different functions and interactions, which again are feeding this purpose or process. And to do BIM, we're going to start asking questions. And I've done a typical 20 questions here about, what sort of things would we ask to build a built asset, but we won't run through them all. But I mean, at the very start of it, we've got to have a purpose. Why are we doing this? And then there's maybe on a follow-on to that, there's an output. There's a water industry example. It may be the treatment of wastewater or the treatment quality of clean water, potable water for drinking. We may have some questions or some requirements about the environment. If we're going to be extracting water, we probably want to be quite close to a water source, whether that's, good underground water source or a river supply, etc. And then moving through, we're going to ask questions about the design. Who's going to design this? How are we going to design this? And I think you know where I'm going with all this conversation, and that's building up the requirements that we need to build a built asset. And as part of the BIM process, we're going to set out requirements at the start of a project to ask these particular questions. And it's these questions that are going to get answered by the exchange of information. So what I wanted to do with that first couple of slides was just set a bit of context to what we want to talk about. And maybe as we look at the life cycle of a built asset, we're going to ask questions about the decommissioning. And quite recently, I've seen something, with their nuclear waste disposal. And we never asked them questions at the start. This is really important to capture the whole life cycle of the built asset and ensure that we've got the right information at the right time to make good decisions. And I'm going to take that a little bit further. So if we had the information requirements that you can see in the grey box down there, that's going to drive the information exchange from the supply chain. And that's going to come through as a form of data. Now, data is great if it's good quality data. So we need a validation layer, if you like, to make sure that we're meeting the requirements. And if we start to structure that or do information modeling, start to put classification to it, hierarchy it, make some sense of it, we can then feed that into the common data environment within the project information model. And this is going to allow design, construction, commissioning to make the right decisions and get the right insight to have the best outcome for the project. And then moving over into operation and maintenance, similarly, we need a robust asset information model so we can continue to make the right decisions and get the right insight to optimize and maintain and support the asset through to its decommission, demolition and disposal. So I suppose, what does the BIM journey look like so far? And I'll be honest, my expertise is really in the utilities world, especially in the UK, where I chair the BIM for Water group, where we have 20 of the UK utilities as a part of that. And we see pockets of activity, good activity, different rates of the journey kicking off. I would say there's an understanding of what good information requirements look like from a client perspective, and those feeding down through the supply chain to direct the consultants and the contractors, the tier one contractors, to deliver a good information model. And we can see there on reference in the old suite of standards, the 1192 Part 2, with the information delivery cycle and delivering the right bits of information as and when they're needed. When we've got pockets of good, we've got good delivery of what graphical information should look like, or what the data, the non-graphical product data, the support of that, the contractual documentation for regulation, conformity and compliance should look like. But what's the missing gap in making this leap, the exchange to push us forward? And I think the leap can only really be realised this year, 2020. And I say that because of the newly released standards, the ISO 23386 and the ISO 23387 around data dictionaries and the structure of product data templates, or data templates we should say now, as they can cover more than just a product, right? So we've got some guidance and some international standards around that activity. We should also, when we're talking about information exchange, pay close attention to classification systems. And there's a few out there. I've mentioned Uniclass in this case, because that is one that BIM for Water is doing some work on. You could find information on that using the link below, and heading down to the Water Industry Classification Hierarchy Standards Group, which has partnered with Uniclass. But they've done that for an important reason, and that is to align that classification system and make it fit for an industry, the water industry. So when we're talking about entities, systems, and the products, they're specific, and there's a specific classification which fits the needs of our quite unique products, like sludge scrapers, etc. Perhaps not used in any other industries, but you can see the movement and the drive of the energy to align the nuts and bolts of delivering BIM or doing information modeling are already starting to happen. We're starting to think about this. And again, just to re-hit on that, 23386 is all about interconnected data dictionaries. What is your reference data library? What does that mean here in this master data model, and what does it mean there? So it's about connecting the terms, having that globally unique identifier, one source of the truth. And sharing of information, we're talking about different stakeholders working in common data environments. Well, we need one sheet to play off. And I really think that, moving forward with this, that standard is going to be, a key player in that. We referenced classification of products. If you want to start talking about properties, then you maybe need to drill a little bit deeper. And I've used ISO 15926 as an example of that from the process industries. And that could be used to define a term, for example, flow rate. We need something that controls that. So when we put it into a system, we can interrogate and identify it. And similarly, the standard for data templates, or the exchange of information, property groups, properties, controlling that. Now, there's been some great work done by SEM 442 and the development of ISO EN 23387. How do we do that? Where's a standard? There's a place to look now, right? The stuff that I work on now is all about information exchange. And, without cutting into too much of the heavy detail here, You can see that I've referenced the standard for IFC and IFDs, and it's all about validation. So checking what's true. And we know this is key to making this work. It needs to be good quality data, and that needs to be at the heart of anyone on this journey. Whatever we feed into the information model needs to work and be true as we move forward, or as we put the project information model on out into asset information, etc. I've also just referenced, maybe of interest, the BIM for Water group now has a network space on the Digital Twin Hub, and its DT Hub is relatively new as well. But if we wanted to start talking about interconnected systems of systems, that would be a space to go and look at. Okay, I'll just take us back to the importance of a manufacturer's role in this whole journey. And I've just took some typical life, some stages of a project's life cycle, in the design, construction, and operation. You can see there that I've just tried to visualize what information is being requested at outline design, tender, moving into construction and commissioning, and then into where hopefully an asset should spend the majority of its life into operation. And manufacturer's data is going to be quite key to supporting that. And that's something that I've got on my agenda as a global BIM manager at Xylem, is to ensure that we're part of that journey, that our information is of good quality, that it's true, and that we can support it, not just through the tender, into post-contract, into the construction, but right through the asset's life. And I think that's important for most manufacturers to understand. To make digital transformation work, you're going to have to play quite an important role in this. So how do I see it for Xylem? We have manufacturing data, a lot of it. It's very precious to us. It's our single source of the truth. And for us to make BIM work, we need to make a mirror of that, which is fit for construction, which is fit for design, and which is fit for operation. And some of the things that I like to think about are time in manufacture, or TIM. So when is that variant configuration fit for manufacture and sale? And then when is it out of sale? How can I archive this and keep this as a reference, or as a copy almost, which can be, I suppose, brought back at later times? This is how do we support legacy projects? How do we get into that space? What's really important for our customers to make the right decisions? I don't want to give you too much detail, and I've got a slide on detail just to open that up and show you what's available. But I don't want to give you too much maybe information. So the level of detail and the whole level of information needs to be just right to make the right decisions at the right time when they're needed. And that needs to be on the agenda. Maybe more importantly, and I've already seen a question around this, is about, machine readable. We've got to move away from thinking that digital is maybe an Excel spreadsheet or an Access type database. We need to be talking about truly interoperable, connectable data formats that are interoperable with a multitude of systems in a multitude of countries with a multitude of different regulations. So from a global manufacturing perspective, that needs to be key to making this work. So again, how much data? We could tell you everything to go away and build a product, and that's not the aim here. The aim here is to give the right amount of information so the right decisions can be made at the points that they need to be made. And the right information, or a source of the truth, so the right decisions can be made. And at Xylem, it's all about, that level of thinking as we all go through this digital journey, is how we make that happen. How do we make them connections? For me, the flow of information for engineered products These are things that require additional thought, like pumps, like specialist treatment, UV reactors, anything like this. They need to go through a selection tool where you'll be essentially asking questions and pulling out requirements from a product. And that has to happen within the Xylem e-tools. And what we're actually doing there is we're pulling from Xylem's back-end data, and that could be the PLM, which is the product lifecycle management systems. It could be our manufacturing execution systems. It could be the enterprise resource planning systems and the associated databases that holds this gold, that single source of the truth. And it's how we package that, mirror that, and safely transport that through a machine readable format down to the typical engineering tools, of which there's some examples on that slide, that can then be integrated, federated together by the different stakeholders to then feed into the customer's top-end systems. And if that's the place, and we see that as the flow of information, that's where we should be focusing our support and getting the information, getting the building blocks to make information exchange work, and to enrich the asset management system, the AMS. The AMS, or the computer-aided facility management systems, or the building maintenance systems, etc. That should be the focus. And as manufacturers, certainly from a Xylem perspective, we want to be part of that journey and feed into that. We don't just want to stop at design and construction. So I'm just looking, and I'll put this together just to sort of highlight maybe some of the tools we've got. Let's work with what we've got first before trying to do something fancy, if you like. So we've got some really nice tools around pump station design. That's moving to a 3D environment. That's actually one of Adam's applications. He's the owner for that. Thinking about what we do in terms of the graphical data. How do we present that? What's good for the different countries that we operate in? That works at design stage. What about tendering? What about these selection tools, the project spaces within that? How do we exchange that information, make things quicker? Let's move away from email exchange. Let's make it more direct. So Xylem application engineers working with project engineers. And then how do we support post-contract? Where's a single source of the truth for how that product left our factory, and how can we support our customers through spares, replacement, service type information, etc. Again, it's all about presenting to the right person at the right time, as and when they need to know that information. This is the BIM landing page, which is put together as a bit of a come-to place to understand more about what we have on offer and where you can go and find that information. I invite you to go and use that. In addition, I just wanted to open up and just give an example of a project that we've worked on where we've done some of this exchange. So this is embedding a selection tool project working directly with a tier 1 contractor to put that within a piece of design software. And what that's enabled is good communication between Xylem engineers and the project team engineers, removes the need for exchange of emails or exchanging direct through one application. But that will also now go on into the asset information model and allow operations to directly connect with, again, the single source of the truth, but information about operation, maintenance, etc. What's critical about this product and the performance of it as well. And I think really that's what I wanted to open up and share a little bit. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca.
Free.
Okay.
Before I start, I'd like to add that if you're watching this as a recording, you can actually ask Jamie and Adam some questions. We're going to pop their email addresses down the side. So Jamie and Adam open to answering any questions that come through after the presentation. So first one, Jamie, we have, how do you feel your job role will develop over the next decade as BIM advances?
Yeah, great question. And, I do believe this is a journey. We don't have all the answers. We can see that by the development of the standards as well. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and it's going to be a very slow, progressive move to where we want to be. And Adam hit the nail on the head. People are still thinking this is technology. It's really not. And I think the advancement's going to be more interconnection. There's going to be deeper look into internal systems to make the connectivity work and the support. So, where do I see myself in maybe 5 years? I think it's going to be more on the interconnection. So maybe more on our internal systems, maybe pulling in our supply chain into the information flow, and looking at perhaps interconnected digital twins. How can we feed in Xylem services? I've spoke predominantly from a product perspective, but where do the services fit in? Where can we do advanced analytics on systems and start to hit some of these key industry challenges, around our networks and water resilience and balancing that out? So maybe that answers.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Thanks, Jamie. Next one we have is we have one here. How do you integrate BIM with GIS?
The how-to, that's got to be, I suppose that's a challenge. I suppose we could start here and maybe look at the concepts or the benefits to doing that. An information model is great, but where is its tag? Where does it sit in the world? I do know there's particular vendors looking into this at the moment, and I believe there's a partnership between one of the major GIS vendors and one of the major software vendors. So I believe it's something that's being explored and progressed towards. I guess it's not really a simple answer
That's fine.
to that. Yeah.
Perfect. We've had a few more come through. So you are a manufacturer and we are a main contractor. For us to insert/integrate your 3D models into our main model, which is the best format for the main contractor to use in your eyes? And do you have 3D models for all your products?
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple of things that spring to mind here. From a personal perspective, I think it's always best to use native format. So if the tier one contractor is working in whatever software that might be, a manufacturer, if they can, should exchange graphical content or I see it's 3D models, the graphical content in the format that they want it. There's obviously challenges around there, and I'll make this point that software used in the design for manufacture is a lot different to software perhaps used in the federated modeling for built assets. One of the places we could look is again at standards. So many of us are probably aware of STEP, which I believe is supported by, I think it's ISO 10303, maybe part 21. So there are already some guidance around that. There's also developments with industry foundation class. So looking at a standard would be good. Manufacturer, if they could, and it's certainly on my agenda, explore exchange within native format. And do we have, I'd love to say yes. We design our I'm talking as a whole now, so I'm talking about 30 brands and maybe talking about equipment manufacturers that Xylem owns, probably let's pick 16 or something like that. Primary design is 3D driven. There's a number of reasons for that, and certainly from a pumps perspective, computational fluid dynamics is one of the driving metrics for that design. So do we have 3D content? The answer would be yes. Do we have 3D content that is safe and secure in terms of intellectual property for release into construction? not at the minute, but the majority, we have something, and I would suggest reach out to the local commercial team to get that content. It is there. It just needs packaging into something that's fit for purpose in construction.
Excellent, thank you. Another one as well. Are there many architects or specifiers that you talk to that are resisting the adoption of BIM? If so, how do you get them on board?
That's quite an interesting question. And I believe maybe Adam could help answer this as well, because the majority of stakeholders that I speak to are, already in the space and already using it. So at my level, they're already on board. I have, in my previous days when I was on the tools or an application engineer within design, not everyone's on this journey. We know that. We know there's benefits, and some clients, as Adam showed in the studies that have been done, are insisting that this should be done for many reasons. But I don't know, Adam, where's your stance on that question?
I think one of the biggest things will change a lot of people's opinions will be basically case stories, either case stories at the kind of the level of the people that are paying for the projects. So be it a water board, a municipality, a country, where they see the benefits that they can get from utilizing BIM, or be it a contractor or an architectural forum that is able to design a building in 30 to 60 seconds because they have like a tool that is able to work with certain projects to be able to give like a skeleton foundation with a complete bill of materials. Some of these things, once you have all of the data that you want, the different ways that you could use that to kind of generate, instead of being able to spend or taking a lot of time to generate 2 or 3 ideas, you can give a client 100 ideas to say, here's the space that you have available, and this is all the different kind of designs that you want. And so I think once people start to see some of the benefits from it, and I think also once the technology keeps getting more and more accessible, as the larger players or maybe the more custom players pave the way and show what can be done, I think a lot more people are going to be able to understand. And I think really it's about, what does it mean? What can you benefit from it? And obviously from a large, someone that's paying for the project, obviously they want less cost, be it capital cost or operations cost. But then I think when it comes down to the contractors and the architects and the consultants, it's being able to either do more faster or to be able to kind of differentiate yourself as well. So those are I think are the things that will really move the market once people can. And the question I think will be, will it be done by mandate coming from the top down, or will it be by people trying to differentiate themselves in the market coming from the bottom up? So I think that's one of the interesting questions coming up, to see how that works.
Excellent, thank you both. That all our questions have been answered so far. So yeah, I think we're drawing to an end now. So I hope you all found that very useful and informative. As I've mentioned, if you have any questions and you're watching this on a recording or later on, use the contact details on the side. They should be there available for you now, so you can send Adam and Jamie some questions. They'd be more than happy to answer them. So it's also worth adding this webinar is available to refer back to at a later date. It will be hosted on Xylem's website, as well as Future Constructor and Architect and Public Sector Build Journals websites and social pages. So yeah, I'd like to thank our speakers, Adam and Jamie, for their time and imparting their knowledge. Thank you guys. And I'd like to thank you, our audience, for taking the time out and sending across our questions. So thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.